Hi, I want to go through the material in the chapter today, and I'm not using my usual method, so I'm hoping that the sound is going to be uh, very good. Anyhow, we're talking about menus, form fill-in, and dialogues. Now, we all use menus, so it can't be that difficult. What is the purpose of a menu? The purpose is to be able to help us direct our activity and find what we need to do. Form fill-in is very simple. We're putting in forms, but it's all about some task that we're trying to accomplish, whether it's just searching with Google or whether it's creating up a new account on Amazon. So the simplest method, obviously, is a method similar to what we're accustomed to even in our Canvas, where we just kind of go down the list, or here on our side, we have a list of icons and we select one of them, and they can be radio buttons, icons, letters, just even a yes, no. But menus have a lot of different options. In order to possibly narrow down what we're looking for, we might have multiple options to give us the best choice of what we're looking for. And we all know of that if we're using any kind of drawing program. This is an example of that, for example. But in addition to that, we have, just like when you did the Survey Monkey and you had pull-down menus, you had pop. We all know about pop-up menus. We know about toolbar menus that we have with our browser. These are just a few of them. We know about shortcut menus, the Control-C, the Control-V, to be able to get us to do things, the right click, the left click. These are all different devices or methods for us to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And they're part of the menu structure. Now, as menus get more complicated, we have something called a tree-structured menu, and this is an example where, here we're in Adobe, we have these choices, we pick drawing marker, we pick drawing, and we pick the type. PowerPoint has very similar things. Word can be very complicated, but this cascading of menus to get us to narrow down, because we start with larger categories and then we triage to smaller and smaller categories. A cascading pull-down menu, this would be called. And we all have a phone, and we've seen changes in how just our text messaging occurs. So, for example, on this particular phone, everything is static. You don't know who talked, but it's just kind of a running scroll of what is kind of being presented to the user. Here, on the other hand, we have a little bit of a variety of things. This is what we call a ticker menu. When I think of a ticker menu, another one is if you ever go to Groupon and it says if you do something within the next 25 minutes, you get another $10 off, that ticking type menu. All of these menus are designed to motivate us to do something. This menu here is a little easier to read and identifies the sender much more readily than this. On my Apple phone, for example, my messages are in green and the other messages are not. Now, here is an idea of a pie menu. This is from the game, from The Sims, which was a simulation video game that used to be very popular, still can. But here is our person, and they're trying to make a decision, and we have all of the choices right here. Okay, as menus get longer, we have more options. We have scrolling menus, we have combo boxes, fish eyes. All of these menus allow us to be able to display all the menu items in a short period of time. Like combo boxes, you scroll and then you get to another group of items. The fish menu displays all of the menu items on the screen at once, but shows only one item near the cursor at full size. So you see a whole bunch of them, you get a sense of all of them, and then you just see the one. And as you start to see, there's a lot of decisions that are made with menus. For example, sliders. How loud do you want to be? We do this with the volume all the time. That's a menu. An alpha slider moves to different levels of granularity. These two are pretty much similar in sense. But, it's the size. How big do we want our text? How loud do we want our music? Who all do we want to include? And the tree structures really gets into this whole idea of two-dimensional menus, where we're able to see a very broader, deeper depth of the menu choices that we might have. So for example, here's an example of the giant pea pod, and you can see here we have general store. Within general store, we have all these choices, and if we click on these, we would get down to the granular level of the type of bread, the type of bagel, etc. And this is what you have when you're self-checking at the store too, as you know, to get to some of these items. And then you could go up to different levels. So this is at the store level. This is if you want other information, like you were going to schedule a delivery time, if you want recipes. So it takes it even further. And here at the highest level is where you would then go into your account and you would save and help. So this is the level of granularity is here at the very front page. And then on the side, we see there's still other menus here. So you can see this is a lot of things going on in this menu. This is really more than two-dimensional. When I look at it, it's 2, 3, possibly 4 dimensions, and a lot of functionality occurring. So embedded menus, we're very knowledgeable on embedded menus. When I think of Craigslist, you go to Craigslist, you get a whole list of things, and it's just a continual link to something else, a link to lessons, for example. Here's a group of lessons. So all of those are parts of it. Flickr has a very different type of menu. They used to have something where you could explore and you would have a tag. Right now, this is an example of a picture tag where you would then pick which ones you want. So if you want this one, it'll take you back to the menu to other ones. But a tag cloud would be an example. But this is a picture tag. So this would be one. Graphical menus where you see a map or some kind of graphic, and from that graphic we can pick something. Perfect examples if you're studying anatomy and you see the brain, and then you can pick a part of the brain, and then it comes out the definition of what that is. So that's a graphical menu. But you can see we have numerous menus, and they can be combined. We can create wizards that will create even cue cards and other types of icons that can be presented to the user. And these can be simultaneously presented. They could be presented in a linear fashion. All of these are decisions that you as the designer make as you're creating your artifact, whatever it might be, your product. And when I think of tree structured, one of the best tree structured has got to be Amazon.com. When you go to Amazon, for example, you start out with, popular departments. So if I wanted to go to music, for example, I start to get a list of all of the different music, and it continues further and further. And you see also that what's very popular now, and we just have become used to it, is the rating, and how this rating, our social media rating, really has become part of our decision making in lots of ways. So putting that with your products is another way to be able to encourage, and can be part of the menu, the presentation of the menu. Combinations of, as I said, there's all different types. There's 2 other types of networks I'm just going to mention. They're acrylic and cyclic. Those are useful for social relationships where you can have a tag. And when I think of those, for example, I think of when you're doing research and you use a tag word, and from that word, you bring up a whole list of other research articles that are related to that. They might be directly related or just tangentially, but whatever they are related to that topic. Content related, relating things in any kind of a menu, you've got to do it by the task. So you want to create logical groups of similar items, just like we saw with the Peapod. All the bakery items were together. You form a group that cover all the possibilities. So you start out at a high level and you just narrow it down, down, down. You have to be able to create categories. And you can't have items that are overlapping, because then that becomes confusing to the user. They need to know where that might fall. Now that's often very tricky, so you need to have alias words that on a search that can help guide that. Use familiar terminology for the items, and that just makes sense. Okay, the presentation, the sequence of how you present things, the order of items in the menu is important and should take a natural sequence. What does that mean? You know, if you're ordering things for like shopping, you know, you would want to put the time this is occurring, the number that they're ordering, any kind of physical properties. When there's no task related, the designer has to choose, you know, what's the best way to put all of those things. So think of the order. The order of the menu is important. And this is an example of a content organization. And this is what they're calling an adaptive. And the reason they're calling this adaptive is because this menu will change depending upon what font you're using. So, you know, in Word, if you're using Comic Sans, and that's what you're using, you'll see it up here in the recently used. It remembers and it adapts to what the user wants. And as you're looking at content organization, the menu layout is very important. You want to be able to look at semantics, because we are in the semantic web. You always want to go from broad to shallow, narrow to deep. Graphics, numbers, titles. You want the titles to be somewhat in some similar method. You don't want one title with 4 words and another title with 9 words. You want to group items meaningfully. You want to be able to explain how you group them so that a user would understand. Sequence items meaningfully. And these are things that really, in a user study, you start to identify how users are thinking about these items. You know, keywords are very important because they're the search that are used for within a site and outside of a site. So the intrasite, intranet, and the extranet. Grammar, layout, that just makes sense. Spelling, how many times have I seen something that is misspelled? Sometimes it's mine. Allow jump aheads and shortcuts. We all love shortcuts instead of having to, when I think of, you know, just doing a Command C to be able to do something to get to a menu item I want. Jump to and from previous menu items and be able to use the back arrow and the front arrow to move forward. All of those are very important. Pictures and icons also, because we want to be able to, not everybody is the same language. So the more neutral your site can be in terms of icons to be able to represent things, the easier it is for a greater variety of people if you're looking at an international crowd. But you always would want to put some kind of wording to be able to help people, because sometimes those icons are not as intuitive as you would think. Okay, for titles, a descriptive title. I mean, this things that should just make sense. Phrasing is consistent terminology. So if you call something a telephone one time, you don't call it a phone the next. You continually refer to it as a telephone. Okay, consistent. Graphical layouts, which I just talked about before. You have to consider the screen width and the length. You've got to be considering it how it looks like when you actually break it down to a phone. And the display rate. How quickly is it going to display? Some graphics take a long time, so you want to be cognizant that if you have a very heavy graphic type of display, a lot of icons, that they're not just one to each of them loading at a time. They have to be able to display at all of them at the same rate, and be able to highlight when somebody selects which of the graphics that they might be using, which is very important. And then, establishing consistency for the titles, for the placement. So, for example, if you have a list of items in a recipe and you're doing a cookbook, the title of the recipe might always go to the left, and then bullet each of the ingredients. You don't have the ingredients all over the page. Sometimes at the right, sometimes at the left. The instructions, you kind of maybe wrap them around, putting boxes around things to be able to separate them, and allowing for error messages to pop up that are informative so users know what to do. And within the organization, the techniques are indentation, upper and lower, symbols to create separators, cascading, but tidiness and artistic visual appeal is very important for how people are going to use it and whether they're going to even explore your site or your product at all. In bookmarking and browsers. Translation of foreign language is becoming more and more a critical issue. Okay, boxes, filling in boxes is very important. Some important things are using the keyboard tabs, error correction. So for example, nothing is more maddening to me than when I'm putting in a date and I don't know what format the date's got to be in. You know, understanding the label meanings, understanding the permissions. Sometimes you have to have a certain code to be able to enter things, and use of the enter and or return key are both at the same time. It's very important. And this is I think a good resource for you to come to look at as you're putting together your dialog boxes, your phones. And as you see, you know, it's about being visual. It's about error correction, error prevention. But the goal is that your user is able to easily understand what's being asked for, easily enter the information in the fields that you're requesting information in a error-free method, and be able to correct immediately. And if there's an error, be able to tell the user where the error is specifically. Okay, so this is an example of somebody entering the Yahoo. Why do we need this particular thing? Why do we need this? The reason is because we have bots that go out and create fake accounts, and they just want to make sure that you're a real person to create an account, so they don't have a lot of fake accounts out there. Okay, telephones, things that you can do. You can identify how you want the phones, the times, the dates, the dollar amounts. Have that pre-formatted so that people just know how the format's supposed to look like. It's the best. And lastly, the dialog boxes, combinations, the meaningful title, the emphasis, the clustering. All of these are just the aesthetics that we need to do to make sure that we are providing a document, a form that people can look at easily. So in this particular example, there is a consistent way that they're showing all of these different headings, and the user just picks which one they want. They've clustered them all together. They didn't let them spread out. So it's at one viewpoint, you're able to see everything. Okay. And you want smooth appearance, distinguishable, but small boundary. You don't want it to take up a lot of space. Sometimes somebody told me for this class, actually, when I wanted people to take that initial getting started, I only had just a link and I had it look very aesthetic, and somebody said to me, it was not evident enough. So making sure that it is evident enough that people know what to do. And also make it easy to disappear if we don't need it. And some novel designs, you know, for combining menus, you know, like this is a pie, it's a picture, you kind of click on this and it goes, and it'll bring you all of these different. If you go to dictionary.com, they have this whole semantic web integrated within their presentation of the dictionary. And lastly, I keep saying lastly, looking at menus that are going to be appropriate for small displays, very important. And looking, you know, for entertainment, learnability. So here is an example on a mobile phone where we have a few tiles, and you can dial and you'll get new ones each time, or you have all of them showing up at one time. So this is a way, as this particular one says on the mobile phone, start with the 4 tiles using a 2-level zoom to see the tile details. The user can specify which tiles they are in their zoom space. Then when they become familiar with the interface, they can add all 16 up to a 3-level zoom interaction to go smoothly between zone to zone. So this application accommodates phone use, thumb use on the touch screens, numeric pads, 4-way controllers. So when I look at my iPhone, for example, I see that I have groupings of applications now to be able to get things to work. So that's it for now. I hope you will have enjoyed this presentation and your perception of menus will have been greatly expanded. Thank you. Menus are not that simple, are they? Thank you, and happy menu creation.